Yeah. So setting up on YouTube in a minute. Okay. I believe I am live now. Dami, could you please help me confirm that I'm live on YouTube?
I think we are. I see a red button come up indicating live.
Live. Okay. Awesome. Right. So we're live. Once again, you're welcome, everybody. And I have the pleasure of hosting once again Mrs. Adeola Olumeyan. She's a powerhouse, right? She needs no further introduction outside of the biography, right? And the other part, I'll leave you guys to fill in the blanks yourself after experiencing her. So someone like Mrs. Olumeyan, you literally experience them. You know, they can't sit down and tell you all the power about the power that they have and all of that. You just literally experience them. So yes, for the purpose of those that maybe are not part of the court, this is Bold with KSA, and it's a group coaching and mentoring program for young people aged between 18 to 35. Bold is acronym for becoming open-minded and limitless. Sorry, becoming open-minded, limitless, and daring, right? So that's the acronym, and that's what we're targeting with this program. Looking at mindset re-engineering, looking at how to overcome limiting beliefs, looking at how to become the best version of yourself, literally. And one of the things that I say is this: experience is the best teacher, but it doesn't have to be your own experience. There's so much that you can get from other people's experiences, and that's why on a day like this, you're going to have that access to hear from Mrs. Adeola Olumeyan, right? I'm using this privilege as well, this program, to create a channel where the network that I have, I could sort of create a channel with mentees in quotes, you know, so that they could, these are some people that maybe you won't have a direct access to on a normal day, but then you have the privilege to hear them. I know that there are a few lawyers on the call on the group and thereabout, but the principles we'll be sharing here today is really for life, right? Yes, the topic is building a resilient professional life beyond the spotlight. However, the principles, I assure you, the principles go beyond this. It's really, really for life. You see, if you win in life, you've won. That's all. If you win in career and then you lose in other areas of your life, then I don't know, right? So that's it. So I'm ready for the session. I brought up my writing materials, even though last night I was with Mrs. Adeola. She took me out, you know, for like about 4 hours, and she'd given me a sneak peek of what the conversation would be like today. And I was like, wow. I tell her, write that down. You must say that part. You must say that part. All right. So without wasting much time, I will pass on the microphone to her right now. So Mrs. Adeola Olumeyan, we're talking beyond the spotlight, building a resilient professional life. What does this mean to you? What was the first thing that was on your mind when you saw this topic? If you were to sit your 25-year-old self down and talk to him, or of course talk to her about how to build a resilient professional life, because I mean, you've been in the legal business for 20 years plus, right? So what does it mean to you? What will you say to him? What will you do differently if you had the chance to redo it all over again, starting from like you were age 25, thereabouts? Okay.
So it's not so much as only what I'll do different. Some of it is what I'll start to do earlier. Some of it is
wow.
Some of those are things that I know now are good decisions, you know, because when you're in the midst and in the thick of things, sometimes you question yourself and you ask yourself, is that a good decision? But my back now, my older self can say, yes, some of these ones were good decisions. It was totally worth it. So I made a couple of notes, thinking about it after I left you yesterday, going home, and then just before I slept, I made some notes to kind of do a little bit of review of my life. And just so that I don't sound like an old cow, I'd also try to make it relatable and talk about things that are happening even now, and then go over it like that. So my 25-year-old self would benefit from knowing that. And again, like, you know me, I like to speak from my heart. So for those who were expecting a PowerPoint, my apologies. I could have, but I like to speak from my heart. I will be sharing for about 10, 15, not more than 20 minutes, so that we can then talk. And I'll be talking to KSA, and then I can take questions as well. So for me, there were many moments that were sink or swim. Those times in a professional's life where you either make it at that point or you don't. Or at that moment, it looked like that's what it was. You know, you're faced with a decision that if you're not careful about that decision, what then happens is your life ends up in a different tangent. So I had so many of those. I look back and I realize one of the things that have helped me in building that professional life. First, I'm not a spotlight seeker, as you know, but one of the things that has helped me the most is staying true to north. And what do I mean by staying true to north? I mean staying true to my core values. So north is like upwards, forwards. So staying true to who I am, regardless of who people think I am or should be. And that brings me to what we talked about yesterday, integrity. I find that there's a difference between integrity and reputation. Integrity is who you are when nobody else is watching. Integrity is who you are when there are no consequences. You could get away with it. Integrity, at that moment, the decisions you take show us who you truly are. If, for example, you could take $1 billion and there will be absolutely no consequence. $1 billion is meant for maybe your entire community, but there will be no consequence at all. There will be no repercussions, whether now or in future. What would you do? Would you take it for yourself because you also have needs, your family has needs, or would you use it for what you ought to use it for? Integrity is you've been asked to do a thing. You've promised that you can do a thing. Say, for example, the ones that annoy me the most, mechanics. You've promised me you can fix my car, and on the strength of your promise, I've given it to you, and then you tell me it'll be back at 1:30, 2:30, I'm still looking for you. You know, integrity is who you are when there's no consequence. Integrity is who you are when nobody's watching. Reputation, on the other hand, is the one it seems a lot of us are concerned about. Reputation is who people think you are or who people want you to be. Reputation is the one that that puts us on that pedestal where you're on the stage. Reputation is what puts you on the stage. Integrity is who you are when you are off the stage. And over the years, I found out that facing my core, my north, requires my reputation. It requires me to stay true to who I am. And there have been many occasions that have tested that resolve. So I'll give you an example. And this is very personal for me. In fact, the firm that is involved is not on my CV at all. as a young lawyer, shortly after I finished from NYSC, I got a job and it was paying me relatively well. It wasn't paying fantastically well, but it was paying more than average, more than what I knew most of my core classmates were earning. So for me, it was good. Along the line, my boss developed feelings for me. I'm not sure how that happened, honestly. I'm not sure. And
Was he married?
Yes, he was.
But you were not married yet.
I wasn't. The feelings he had gave me opportunities to travel, opportunities to earn more, opportunities to get away with pretty much anything that I wanted to. And initially, honestly, I didn't realize that was it. I just thought it was a result of hard work. I just thought, I'm the one in charge of this. So if I get to travel with him, that's how it should be. And then, of course, the whispers began. And one of those days, he said we should all come on a public holiday. None of us wanted to come. And we all said, oh, we don't want to come on a public holiday. He called me and asked me, do you want to come on a public holiday? I said, no, I really don't think there's any need to. There's nothing urgent or pressing that requires us to come on a public holiday. And then he asked me a strange question. He said, did your colleagues put you up to this? Did they ask you to say this to me? I thought that was odd. And like, no, we talked about it and I don't want to come as a person. I agree with everybody else. And he said, okay. Then he called for a meeting and then he said we were not coming on the public holiday, which we're all excited about. Then after the public holiday, we resume and he gives everybody suspension. He sends everybody on suspension apart from me. And I was wondering, okay, why did it get suspended? And the HR made up some excuse of how insubordination or something. And that's when I realized that, the rumors were true and I had to face the truth. And I asked him, I said, you seem partial to me. And he said, yes, he's glad I brought it up, and the whole thing, And I was shocked and uncomfortable. And at that moment, I knew I had to make a choice. And I told him, if everybody gets to go on suspension because of what we talked about and we believe in, then I'm going on suspension. And he said, okay, nobody goes on suspension. And he calls everybody back. That made me even more uncomfortable because I'm like, okay, I have this much influence. And I knew I had to leave. There was no way I was going to stay there like that. And a break came for me. He was going to travel. And I told him I couldn't travel. I can't remember what I told him, but he said, okay, no problem. I didn't have to travel with him. But he wanted me out of the office because he knew that, people were very upset with me and me not going on suspension and the whole thing. He didn't want anyone to trouble me. So he wanted me to take a 1-week leave while he was away. So I said, I thanked him very much. And I went on the leave. And during my leave, I sent him a resignation letter. This was a well-paying job. I did not have another job for another 4 months. I would wake up in the morning and it was just hard to explain. You had a job today and you didn't have a job and you walked away because your boss liked you. So what? That happens every day. I mean, I had somebody tell me, it's how you manage it. You don't have to leave. But I was not going to be true to my north. And so I made the decision, no, it was not going to work. And I left. And I admit, he was a rather, eye candy, good looking man. So there was no point putting myself and him in that space. And I also know that, when you put man and woman together, things happen. You can never say for sure unless you take practical steps to put things in place. So I decided, this is not going to work for me. I didn't have a job for about 4 months. It was hard to explain because almost everybody at that time, all the big firms had finished their recruitment, and all. So it was a case of, wait till next year. And eventually, I did get another job. I look back now and I'm thankful that I took that decision to leave that job, because the job I then got gave me international opportunities. The job I then got after that paid me about 3 times more than I was earning with him. If I hadn't left, I would have been a local champion in that space with him. I wouldn't have had the opportunities that I had. So my sacrifice paid off. So my 25-year-old self realizes now that that sacrifice paid off. Staying true to love was good.
Wow.
So, yeah. Now, and it's not just, us as individuals that face this kind of challenge and have to take this decision at any time. And the truth is, it's not about being perfect. That's not how integrity works. It's about being consistent about your values. It's about choosing courage over comfort. It's about choosing principles over popularity. That's
wow.
What it is.
See, let's take a deep breath there. Choosing courage over comfort and choosing principles over popularity. See, I wish that they could put that quote somewhere on my forehead here so that anytime everybody here sees me, they can read it over again. Dami, can you put that? Can you drop it as a chart, here? And also on the group as well, please. That's our word for this week. Courage. No, what actually there is courage over comfort. And principles over popularity. Wow, that's deep. When you said that, it's like I saw a realm of like my life story right in front of me, right? So that is so deep. And I feel like for everybody listening, it could mean several things to you. Yes, we'll get into Mrs. Adeola's own story in terms of what led to coming up with that and all that, but can we just take a moment to internalize it? Choosing courage over comfort and principles over popularity. Wow, that is so deep. I feel like some of us here, even if you are struggling to find the meaning, these 2 sentences, so to say, or phrases will have so much meaning in the next 5 years, 10 years. Trust me. Choosing courage over comfort and choosing principles over popularity. Very, very, very important. Thank you so much, Ms. Adeola. I'll pass the mic back to you. I just needed that breather for you to sink in, right? And you guys, please have your questions ready. She has a hard stop. I've begged her for extra 15 minutes. So by 6:15, she has to be out of here. You're muted. Are you saying something? Okay. So please get your questions, have your questions ready. Trust me, you may not have that much direct access to Mr. Adeola for now. This is a good time. Imagine that, imagine maybe you're 25, you're 30, and you're, thinking about your best self. You're thinking about your next 5 years. And imagine Mrs. Adeola coming from the future now to tell you certain things, right? What will you ask your future self? Like if you're given the opportunity, what are those questions, right? Especially related to what she's speaking on, and of course the topic as well. So please have your questions ready. And trust me, one of the things I say is this: the quality of the question determines the quality of the answer. The quality of the question determines the quality of the answer. So don't start thinking about your question. Don't wait to the end and say, just ask something on general thing. Really ask something that is tugging you, that could impact you and even every other person here. And that's how to start a journey of impact where you're not thinking about just yourself. This question, let me just keep it to myself. I'll find the answer somewhere. But you have no idea how beneficial it can be to the next person that's listening. All right. So over to you back, Mr. Adeola. Thank you for that. I love it.
Okay. So, I mean, I was saying that this whole integrity thing is very important, and we face it even in professional lives. Even companies face it. When I was thinking about this, I remembered the Volkswagen scandal that everybody was calling Dieselgate. I don't know if you remembered that. And just very briefly, for the sake of those who might not have heard about it, in I think 2015, the US Environmental Protection Agency found out that Volkswagen had installed a software in its diesel vehicles that allowed it to cheat emission tests. So what happened is when they put this, because they had installed this software in their vehicles, the emissions that was being recorded was emitting just about 40 times the permissible levels of nitrogen.
What emissions? Okay, nitrogen.
Yes. Meanwhile, what they were emitting was way more than that. And of course, once this broke out and they found out, they were fined 30 billion in fines. They had settlements from people, individuals who sued them, environmental groups who sued them, the government itself. They had to recall the vehicles globally, and of course, you can imagine what happened to their stocks. Their stocks plummeted and their market value dropped. I mean, Volkswagen was known for the car, that's what they were known for. Everyone knew that, their cars were reliable, engineering excellence. Of course, they suffered reputational damage. Customers lost trust. Regulators who always believed that, they were one of the ethical companies. And I mean, if their shares plummeted, of course, it means that investors also lost trust in them. This decision also affected personalities and personal lives. Their CEO had to resign. He was tried also for criminal action was taken against him, not just him, several other executives. Some of them were convicted, So sometimes, even when we're in a team and these ethical issues come up, don't forget to face your north. Make sure that you're speaking up. If you have to blow the whistle, blow the whistle. But don't stay there and let them murky the waters that you stand on. Don't stay there and let somebody soil who you are. Because again, you want to be popular and be on the popular side. Of course, I mean, Volkswagen had to shift their strategy, but while they sold millions of vehicles initially, they paid back multiples of that in billions. All the recall, all the destroying it, and all the, I mean, it will be pretty hard for them to regain the trust that's been broken, because integrity is a competitive advantage, not just for you as an individual, but also for an organization. Why do we buy some products that we buy? Because the experience that we have for using those products remain the same. When I taste Coca-Cola, it does not taste like 7-Up. It doesn't taste like milk today, 7-Up tomorrow. The taste is consistent. And that's why we would go back again and again, because your experience is consistent. And it's the same with you as an individual. What is the experience that we have when we relate with you? Because I mean, it's tempting to take shortcuts. It's tempting to do those things that, just a little tweak here and there. But the truth is, those things don't help us to last. And integrity is in not just, it's in many ways. So for example, like the story I shared about the boss situation, it's in things like your interpersonal relationships. So you are a boss at work. Do you mete out the same rewards and punishments? Or do the rewards and punishments that you mete out depend on who it is? If it is my friend or somebody in my camp, they get a different kind of treatment. And those are not things that help to build trust in relationships. You hear of companies who have bad organizational culture because there's no trust, because some people are Oga's favorites and things are not on the basis of fairness. And those are the things that weaken organizations. Organizations like that they're not organizations built to last. And it's the same way with your professional life. If 1 minute you and I can cut corners, trust me, we'll cut the corners today. In future, when we need to take a decision, you would always doubt whether what I'm saying is true. I'll give you an example. When I was in law school, almost every judge that we knew, because in law school, you go to law school and then you come back, you do what is called the chambers attachment, and also you do what is called the court attachment. During our court attachment, a lot of judges allowed the students to leave earlier than we should. And we were wondering, and I'll say his name, Justice, I was with Justice Adeola Olumeyan. And we're wondering, this man, must you be an Oyinbo man? Can you please just let us close earlier? So one of those days we agreed that we're going to go have a conversation with him. So we all asked, could we see your lordship after court? And he was, oh yeah. I'm sure he thought, we wanted to tell him, give him feedback or something. So we told him, please, we really like more time. We want to close earlier. So many judges do it and all that. And then he asked a critical question. He said, when you leave earlier than you should, would you expect me to sign that you stayed for the time that you should? And we were like, yes, we expect you to. And then he said, I really understand how you guys feel, but I can't do it. He said, because, tomorrow what would happen is I bent the rules for you today. In future, when there's a case that goes south and everybody says, oh, that judge was bribed, in your mind, because I'd cut a corner for you once, you would always wonder if I didn't perhaps cut corners at that moment and maybe accepted a bribe. He said, I will stay with what I know to be right, which is that you should be here for a certain amount of time. It's okay if you don't want to sign, it's okay if you leave, but when it comes to me and the time when I should report back, I will report only the truth. Never forgot that. Because, when it's convenient, we can do it very quickly. But one day will come when you will wonder if I am who I truly say I am because of the experience you've had with me. So people watch us, even the so-called friends that we have today. So integrity sets a tone for a culture of trust. Even for entrepreneurs, nobody would invest in you and in your business if they're not sure that you will do what you say you will do with the money that they're giving to you. So if you're going to build a resilient professional life, integrity must be a daily habit. It must be something that every decision you take, you weigh it on the basis of your integrity, your inner north. I heard you telling them to write down what I said. And another thing I'd like them to write down is ask yourself, what is one non-negotiable value that I will stick to no matter what? Once you have thought about it, and you can write the question down and think about it and write it later. Once you do, stay with that north. It would help you when times and tide change. And that brings me to the topic of sacrifice, because integrity is not always easy and the price can be high. You have to be willing to pay the price for that. You have to be willing to do whatever it takes. No matter how badly you want something, you must be willing to sacrifice. In fact, there's a quote that I love. It says, what you're willing to sacrifice reveals how badly you want it. And that's not an Adeola Olumeyan quote. Because, the higher the goal, the steeper the price, and the rewards are often greater. So you've probably heard of Elon Musk. Remember Elon Musk? When he was going to to invest in tech. Yes, and SpaceX. What he's said that is that, you know, he put all of the 35 million that he had home and abroad. Everything he had is what he poured into that business. You know, he was willing to sacrifice all that he had and stake it in that business. And that's part of what it means to sacrifice, to give up what means a lot to you